Hello, I'm Nurbek Sevitakhunov. You're watching news from Kazakhstan. These are the headlines. Fuel gets cheaper, but transportation costs and the dollar are rising. Gas stations suffer losses, while retirees are unhappy with the increase in public transportation fees. Astana's shareholders are demonstrating to support a national referendum on citizens' rights to manage state affairs. The Prime Minister Karim Masimov's long-planned mysterious visit to the rebellious city of Zhanaozen has finally taken place. On Monday morning, July 16th, the PM flew in by helicopter, visited the newly rebuilt Ozhenmonay Oil Company building, and flew out just as quick. Local residents, mainly relatives of the convicted oil workers who were expecting the Prime Minister's visit, were unable to secure a meeting with him. Neither residents nor journalists were able to find out the reason behind the official's visit from Astana. The local mayor's office was unable to provide clear answers as well. At the moment, Zhanaozen slightly resembled that tumultuous time of last December, with many policemen as well as plainclothes officers reported on the street. On to the next story. The Kazakh press reports that the explosion in Tausamal village was aimed at the head of state. On Monday, Megapolis newspaper published information that at the time of the explosion in one of the village houses, President Nursultan Nazarbayev was a few kilometers away. Meanwhile, the Prosecutor General's office and the National Security Committee neither confirm nor deny the information. Press service officials cite each other's sources. To recount, an explosion rocked a house near Almaty on July 11th, killing 8 people. Law enforcement officials found weapons, parts of explosive devices, a police uniform, as well as religious literature at the site of the explosion. A criminal case was filed on charges of terrorism.
The blast in an Almaty suburb was possibly intended to kill the head of state. During these days, the president was visiting the Ushkhanir Gorge and was to return to Almaty through the only highway connecting Ushkhanir and the airport via Tausamali, former Kamenka, 50 meters from the blast site. We have no comments, as the General Prosecutor's Office deals with the matter. The blast in the Tausamal house, supposedly occupied by Islamic terrorists, going by the literature found on site, has already attracted the attention of Russian analysts and experts. Kazakhstan has always been presented as a calm country, but now anti-terrorism operations and explosions are reported here with a terrifying regularity. According to political scientist Alexei Malashenko, the country is indeed witnessing the rise of an oppositional protest Islam. As a rule, radical Islamists turn up in Muslim countries with no legal opposition, a fitting description of Kazakhstan.
Вопрос в том, как относится к этому власть.
The question is what the authorities are thinking about it. On the one hand, the government understands perfectly well that no Islamist will be able to undermine it. On the other, terrorist attacks keep happening and people are killed, including those linked with the government and authorities. Just like anywhere else in Central Asia, the existence of such radicalism on a small or large scale is always used by authoritarian governments to tighten their rule. It is a different matter, however, that all these terrorist acts are under such a veil of secrecy that it is not clear who is killing whom and in the name of what. Who knows, perhaps these are pure economic clashes. Such cases do take place, for example, in North Caucasus, but often are presented as terrorist attacks.
Такое тоже бывает и выдается вот у нас, например, на Северном Кавказе за какие-то теракты.
Also on Monday, Vladislav Chelykh's grandfather demanded an official apology from Major General Nurjan Mirzaliyev. Last week, during an interview to Vremya newspaper, the former head of the Border Service Agency made unflattering remarks about Vladislav Chelykh and his relatives.
And also speak on TV and apologize for groundlessly insulting my grandson. It is just wrong that he described him as a man without kin, because if my grandson's kin will get together from all parts of the former Soviet and each will spit on his face, he will simply drown. It is unacceptable, and he is not worth the rank of officer. The interview that the former border post commander gave to newspaper Vremya caused a lot of backlash on the internet. The community especially did not like Major General talking about, quote, fatherless child, not the best environment while growing up, and family members with the history of multiple convictions, end quote. Unsurprisingly, Vladislav Chelykh's relatives feel deeply insulted by the press statements of the general. Previously, Nurjan Mirzaliyev himself had to resign following the tragedy at the Arkan-Kirgan outpost.
In the meantime, Chelykh's relatives are no longer allowed to visit the accused for the time being. Vladimir Chelykh said they did not even receive permission to bring him the Bible. He was planning to hold a communion with his grandson. Relatives say financial support intended to pay for Chelykh's lawyer keeps arriving from all across the country. The international human rights community promised to pay for the second lawyer. The next report has more.
The first complaint in the case of Vladislav Chelach was reported by the family of the arrested border guard after they couldn't pass him the Bible. The staff of the Almaty specialized clinic, where the 19-year-old is undergoing psychiatric evaluation, did not want to deal with any religious literature. Vasily Rezvan, the human rights activist consulting the Chelachs, says that Russian Orthodox Church expressed an initiative to offer Vladislav psychological assistance, and that is why the Bible was passed to the soldier. Rezvan also noted that the results of the forensic examination, which will be reported on July 19th, will determine the course of events. If Chelach will be recognized insane, the trial could be called off altogether. Otherwise, the defense has already prepared the strategy, referring to what has been said by the president of the country. Vladislav's defense team will hold on the position that it was a terrorist attack. In my opinion, it was a group of people whom I cannot identify as terrorists or trained infiltrators, because infiltrations usually occur during wars, and we're obviously not at war with anybody, but it was still the work of infiltrators. The former head of the border guards forces, Nurjan Marzaliyev, has a different opinion on the matter. The Major General's interview to Vremya newspaper was the first after his recent resignation related to the events at the Arkan-Kergen border outpost. Marzaliyev notes that he personally met with Chelach and has no doubts about the private's liability. I'm confident. I've talked to him. As a prosecutor and a professional lawyer, I can tell you that he's far from being a fool, naive and innocent, as opposed to what you might think of him from the first sight and how he's being portrayed in the media. You know, when he was describing how he massacred his fellow soldiers, I saw a spark in his eyes. No, it was not a sign of insanity, rather it was a sign of pride for what he did. Gulzhan.org continues to publish its own theories about the tragedy. The website reported that a letter came up during the investigation of Chelach's case, which the private wrote to his former commander Alexei Fomin at Tsarabakhtar outpost. Quote, "I'm not going to continue tormenting you. Get as much cigarettes, tea and pastry as you want for the last time. This is it. We're going separate ways from now on. I don't know you and you don't know me. There was no RPG." End quote. However, the border guards attorneys doubt the authenticity of the note, just like an alleged story behind its appearance. Maybe he wrote down what the investigators told him to write. Vladislav could have thought it was a handwriting sample test, and then it was allegedly found in his cell later. It is not surprising. You might have seen these investigation tricks in the movies. The Mena family also raised doubts about the investigation. In the article of Atarau newspaper, Akjaik, the father of the 20-year-old border guard Meir Khanemenov, one of 14 victims, stated that he questions the death of his son. Before giving a blood sample for DNA examination, we demanded them to take us to the morgue. After understanding that we mean business, the military had to let us in the morgue, where we began to feel doubts. We only saw 8 or 9 bodies, not 14. Our son's blood type is of the first group, but the examination revealed that none of the killed had it. During the first days after the tragedy, representatives of law enforcement agencies were the ones who actively questioned us. But now they don't even pick up the phone when we call. Why are they keeping silent? It is possible that answers to some of the questions will appear after German experts will conclude their examination of 3 bodies. According to the General Prosecutor's Office report, the results of the examination will be ready on July 13th. However, it is also possible that the report will not be publicly available.
Gas stations across Kazakhstan are suffering losses due to lower fuel prices. Members of the country's fuel association organized a press conference in Astana where they voiced their complaints, saying that the situation on the market has reached a critical point.
Entrepreneurs say that the government regulates their rates but does not keep an eye on the wholesalers. As a result, retailers face bigger transportation and storage costs and therefore generate no profit because there is a certain price ceiling they can't exceed. The association also faces problems with transportation of oil products because, according to government regulations, freight transportation does not fall into any of the categories, and this adds more cost. Retailers say that government agencies are cracking down on them. The situation got even worse when the ceiling price went down on July 1st. The most popular gasoline, Mark 92, is now 70 cents per liter. The most popular premium gasoline is now 70 cents per liter. The association members are worried about the new price cut that is expected in August. Meanwhile, businessmen are not going to take any action until autumn, when the parliament returns from vacation.
Минус 7% сейчас идет у розницы.
Retailers are not in the 7% margin. We do not make any profits and operate at a loss. Given the recent price drops, the losses are quite significant.
The dollar also went up in Kazakhstan. The official exchange rate now stands at 150 tenge. Experts predict certain citizens may suffer losses due to these fluctuations. Details in the next report.
The dollar exchange rate has reached 150 tenge mark in Kazakhstan, and it seems it's not going down anytime soon. Economist Ilya Samarov says that the rise was caused by external factors like the drop of oil prices. The change will affect several groups of citizens, including buyers of foreign goods and private banks' customers. People who took dollar loans from commercial banks and have to pay back in dollars will lose because the salaries are still in tenge as national currency, and the exchange rates will make them lose on a difference. The population has different opinions regarding the currency fluctuations. People who keep their money in tenges are not afraid of a volatile dollar exchange rates. Others are worried that the new wave of price hikes is coming soon. These changes will make themselves felt in prices for goods and services, but it will be a gradual process, and I don't think it will be for long. I've purchased several times and I've lost some money, but I haven't calculated the exact difference yet. It won't affect us in any way. All those currency drops and raises don't have much influence on the economy, and they won't affect us. Grigory Marchenko, the head of the National Bank, said 2 weeks ago at an accounts press conference that the currency fluctuations were expected. He added that the dollar-to-ruble rate in Russia is less stable. For more than 3 years, the exchange rate of tenge to US dollar has been stable and fluctuated narrowly in the range of 3 tenges, give or take, which is about 2%. It is very different from the situation in Russia, where fluctuation range is far wider due to a number of circumstances. Back in 2008, the dollar-to-tenge exchange rate was 1 to 150, and Marchenko was saying the National Bank was no longer able to keep the national currency in the range of 120 tenges per dollar. He added, calming the population down, that it was a reasonable compromise between the local sectors of economy. Following the statement, people stormed exchange offices, and now many are expecting the dollar rise this year too, especially in the view of uncertainty on the part of economy experts.
Public transportation costs in Almaty will go up on July 20th. One bus trip will now cost 80 tenge, which is 53 cents.
Representatives of private transportation companies have been striving for the raise of bus fare since last year. The transportation fees haven't been raised in Almaty for the last 5 years, and now officials are sure that they will make private transportation companies improve service quality and procure new vehicles. The Chief Mufti Sheikh Haji Absattar Dirbisali expressed his disapproval for the raise, especially since it will happen on the first day of Ramadan. It's disrespectful. I gave this case to the Chief Imam of Almaty. Almaty pensioners and students are most dissatisfied with rising fares, since a bus trip could soon become a luxury for them, being another link in the chain of price increases for utility rates and foodstuffs. Of course, we are highly dissatisfied since we ride buses quite often and it affects our budget a lot. This decision wasn't well thought out. They had to take into consideration the interests of different social groups like pensioners, students and people like us, state employees with small salaries. 54 cents is very expensive for a bus ticket. It's a lot of money for pensioners who paid less than $200 a month and have to pay for utilities and food as well. They wear old clothes and have no money to buy new ones. I believe the fare should stay the same at 17 cents per ride.
Head of the Union of Muslims of Kazakhstan, Murat Telebekov, requested President Nazarbayev to remove Ahmedjan Yesimov from the post of Almaty mayor. This step was prompted by citizens who complained about the mayor's inefficiency.
I believe this is due to the activities of the local administration and dispersed housing development on the territories of protected environmental zones. The city is withering from unreasonable, barbaric and vandalistic policies of the local administration, which is why we came up with such initiative to put a stop to it. Telebekov mentioned the destruction of the cemetery next to the Al-Farabi Avenue, the real estate development on the park territory at Timiryazev and Shashkin Crossing. The leader of the Muslim Union believes that Ahmedjan Yesimov is no longer relevant as a mayor and people are ready to choose a new leader. Senator Gani Kasimov is touted as a good candidate. The local administration commented on Telebekov's statement, saying that it's nothing but a manifestation of his personal opinion. I've never even heard of such organization. This makes it very difficult to seriously consider such petitions from unknown organizations or communities united by a certain idea. Besides, Telebekov always makes public statements, yet we don't know who is he really lobbying for. It's likely his personal opinion and nothing more. Opinions of city residents polled about the work done by Mayor Yesimov were divided. Complaints were mostly related to increased public transport fare, poor road conditions, an excessive amount of business centers in the city. The mayor needs to take better care of people instead of treating us like this. The mayor is inefficient in performing his duties. You can judge by the road conditions. Also, there are many other reasons why I'm not satisfied with the work of the mayor. The city is clean and peaceful. The roads are good. I'm generally satisfied with his work. I cannot complain. I would give our mayor a C. I can't arrange a kindergarten for my child. It's very difficult for me. I want to have the mayor pay more attention to such issues.
Proposals to raise the issue of mortgage holders and shareholders at a national referendum were made at a meeting held in Astana this weekend. Organizers demanded from the government to revise the rates on loans and conduct the restructuring of debts, as well as stop the eviction of mortgage holders who are unable to pay for their credits.
The government should be held accountable for current situation with the housing development. Hundreds of real estate investors and mortgage holders are still unable to solve their problems. The ex-presidential candidate is confident that officials don't have an efficient solution. Therefore, people themselves need to take control of everything. Musagali Duanbekov eagerly appealed to a crowd gathered at the sanctioned rally on July 15th to support the September referendum proposed earlier by a group of public activists.
1
million square meters of housing is built each year, and yet it's not enough. What is this? Half the population is homeless, but why? What's the reason? Why do we build only in Astana? Maybe it's no longer needed there. We need to stop. Perhaps we should engage construction in the regions. There is also an issue with adequate prices and proper policies. What should we do? Should we continue to thoughtlessly build, or should we ask people's opinion instead? Zaurish Batalova has no doubts about the referendum. During the rally, she spoke of her meeting with the UN High Commissioner, who welcomed the Public Activities Referendums Initiative. Batalova also intends to teach Astana residents the basics of political struggle. Navi Pillai said the civil society is the main partner of the UN, and the right to participate in administration of state affairs is very important. Thus, it will be monitored. Therefore, with support of international organizations and mainly with support of the citizens of Kazakhstan, I believe we will achieve our goal. The authorities must be accountable to the people, and we in turn should teach them. The organizers of the rally assessed the activity of the banks and collection agencies as corporate raiding. They also reminded the authorities about the underdevelopment problem, which cannot be solved by officials. As per Musagali Duanbekov, the 3 million self-employed people announced by Gulshara Abdukalikovas in the president's report is simply catastrophic.
Almost half of the entire Kazakh population plans to spend their vacation inside Kazakhstan, according to the results of a survey conducted by MediaNet. A little more than 7% of those who took the survey will travel to Turkey, with another 7% going to Isykyul in the neighboring Kyrgyzstan, and a little over 3% plan to go to Europe. Such a low rate is mainly due to post-crisis effects and lack of money for trips abroad. However, statistics indicate the opposite, with summer vacations on the rise. Find out the preferences of Kazakh travelers from the next report.
Almaty resident Ruslan Medilbek has already made his vacation plans, and there is no place for Kazakhstan among the resorts on his list. From his earlier experiences of traveling in and outside the country, Ruslan concluded that Kazakhstan is not very welcoming for tourists. There is no elementary infrastructure in place. The quality of hotel services is far below the world standards, all the while the prices are much higher. Today, Kazakhstan tour operators offer packages for $600. You can have 7 or 8 night vacation in Dubai, Turkey or Malaysia. And in Kazakhstan, it is impossible to find something similar. 10 days in Kokshetau cost more than $1,000, and this is not full service either, as it's always lacking. Ruslan has already been to Dubai and Turkish resorts. Now he wants to go to Europe. Many other Kazakhstan citizens expand their vacation geography as well. The 3 most favorable destinations are Turkey, China and the United Arab Emirates. Last year alone, almost 292,000 people visited these countries. On average, a person spent about $1,000 per trip, which means that around 300 million were potentially on the table and did not go to the state budget. Kazakhstan Tourist Association sadly stated that the saying, "No place like home," sounds like an insult in relation to the national tour industry. Why do our tourists go abroad for vacation? Because prices of packages abroad start at $1,000 or $1,200 and they have full infrastructure. Take Turkey, you don't even need a visa to go there for vacation. They also have good roads and hotels. Whereas only time will tell if we'll have it in Kazakhstan. Curiously, even the closest neighbors, the omnipresent Chinese, is now issuing fewer tourist visas to Kazakhstan. In 2010, the entry permit was granted to 3,749 visitors, and the number was cut in half in 2011. Should the downward trend can be explained by the stepped-up regulations for people obtaining working permits not looking for vacation. Nevertheless, specialists add that poor sanitary conditions, bad roads, and inhospitable population deter even the most adventurous visitors from coming back. One of the reasons is the lack of state control. There are, of course, many tourists who choose Kazakhstan. However, after their desperate first experience, they choose Turkey or other countries next year. In the summer, we have a lot of great and beautiful places to visit, good for vacation. But unfortunately, they don't have a developed infrastructure, no roads, and sometimes poor hygiene conditions. Specialists believe that until Kazakhstan's government starts doing something for the development of tourism, not on paper but in reality, all efforts of the country's tour agencies to promote the nation's beauty will be in vain. It seems this presentation video has been the most impressive tourism achievement in all 20 years of the country's independence.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.